So this was a design I called the Slingshot Viper, and it wasn't an airplane. It was basically a one-man guided missile, and it was designed to be launched off of a 300-foot long linear induction catapult that could rotate 360 degrees and be elevated. So what you would do is you would basically aim it directly at your landing point, and then it would launch, and immediately you would be going 300 miles an hour, which is the optimal speed for these tiny wings. And then the little jet engines would just maintain its movement through the air, and it would be really cool. And then when it came time to land, since you obviously can't land it going 300 miles an hour, it would reduce its speed and deploy a standard ram air parachute and land just like the way a skydiver does. Now here you can see a very rough interpretation of the catapult. And you can see here it would rotate around a 600-foot diameter. Now this is something brand new. I only came up with this like 3 weeks ago in the middle of September. And it's an idea for towing people behind a helicopter in this little pod to give them a much, much better experience than riding in a loud, noisy, shaking helicopter with very little visibility. The Heli Pod torpedoes would be far cooler than anything. And these things would seat 2 to 3 people. And if there was a mechanical issue with the helicopter and everyone's going to crash and die, the pod could be released and it would deploy a parachute. Now, these could also be repurposed and used to rescue survivors of floods and other mishaps when you can't actually land a helicopter. This would be on the water, for instance, and with a little ladder attached, people could climb on board. Now, this was just a conceptual model of a jetpack idea I had, that instead of using a jet engine, it would use a small 2-cycle motor to run a high compression, high volume fan or a compressor that would pump the air into the combustion chamber mixed with fuel, ignited, and then the exhaust would come out of those 2 nozzles. And of course, this was just an idea to get a configuration. They would have needed a larger motor, it would have needed a much larger compressor, but the idea was that if you could get away from the expense of a jet engine by using components that weren't so exotic and critical, that you might be able to produce such a jetpack reasonably priced. But of course, this was years and years before the electric type drones and flying machines that are out now. And then of course there was my skydiving rocket. This was designed to carry me up hopefully between 16 and 18,000 feet, where I would pop the door open and jump from it. And this was pretty cool. It was all carbon fiber and was pretty neat. I would have been not standing in it, but I'd be vertical with a harness hanging from the nose to my parachute harness. So when it took off, the G-forces wouldn't cause me to crumple and fall. And as you can see, I had the mobile launcher that I could tilt, I could drop it all the way down horizontal for transporting. And then when I got to the launch location, I would be able to raise it up to a fully vertical position to launch it. And overall, it turned out really nice. I was quite happy with it. It used a special compressed air launch system to give it its initial boost, and there would have been 4 solid rocket boosters attached between the fins to the body for the initial launch. And here it is, all nicely painted. And of course, you can only tow your rocket with a G-Wagon. I mean, come on, what else are you going to tow it with? Now also, as far back as 2011, I began designing and building my own VTOL, my own single-person drone that looked like this. Unfortunately, it's the only picture I have of it, and this was just a mock-up. It wasn't a finished one. I did make an RC model, though, that looked like this, that used just 2 fan units. And after the rocket project came to an end, I did work on a new project to build this catapult launched near space rocket jet glider. Here you can see it. And this was going to be initiated by a catapult launch. And this was the catapult that I built for that. And this was what it was going to do.
Then the first step is to spool up the 2 turbines inside. Once the turbines are running at full speed, then you fire the pulse rockets. By the time I leave the 32-foot launch rail, I should be traveling about 40 miles an hour at that point, so I'll immediately have stability and the ability to maintain control. And it's going to continue upwards at a 80-degree angle, shut down the pulse jets. The initial momentum I have gained will slowly begin to diminish until I reach the apogee of the flight. You get to that point where you can see the Earth's curve, you can see the thin blue line where the atmosphere is, and then above you is the black of space. That is a pretty thrilling thing to experience.
This was basically just a real fun project with Canon to launch 8-pound bowling balls. It was all compressed air, motorized. It was pretty wicked. I could really shoot those balls. Now, back in the early 70s, a company called Williams International that built turbine engines for cruise missiles designed and built this thing called the Wasp, the Williams Aerial Systems Platform, for potential military use. And I loved this thing. I thought it was the coolest. It could fly 60 miles an hour up to 45 minutes, and all you had to do is lean in any direction that you wanted to go, and it would go that way. So I decided I got to build one of those. Now, this was a little WR-107 engine, 1,000 pounds of thrust for the cruise missile, and I wish I had found out they wouldn't sell these to me. But now mine was a little different. You see that door on the back? Okay, now that's in the up position to prevent you from falling out. And then near the right, you see that red pointy thing and the thing in front of it? That was a rocket-deployed parachute. So if this thing ever did experience an engine failure, the rocket would automatically fire out and deploy that parachute. But I never got to finish it.